We'll convene the special joint meeting of the Board of Education and Monrovia City Council at 6:02. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mayor Adams.
Please join me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the roll call reflect that we're all here except for Mr. Blackburn and Mr. Wong, who have been excused. Take up the matter of public comments. Anyone wishing to speak to the board or the city council on this joint agenda, simply fill out a speaker card and you shall be heard. Do we have any speakers, Ms. Huff?
Yes, Board President Hammond, I'd like to invite Brian Tyndall to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Brian Tyndall. I live in Monrovia. I wanted to talk about the landscaping project that you guys are doing. I think it's awesome that we're replacing the trees. I heard it's a 2-to-1 project. We've already started near the sidewalk. I wanted to encourage you guys to plant native trees. Live oak, Engelmann oak, blue elderberry, western sycamore, black walnut, and California laurel are apparently all the native trees that are better in our environment. Once the native trees are planted, they require less water. Once they're established, they don't require the pesticides, because they're more resilient for the animals that we have in the area. And I'd also like to encourage you to plant milkweed, because that's very important for the monarch butterflies that are in our community that suffered a tremendous drop in their population. All of that said, thank you very much for your time. I came to the school board about a month ago maybe and talked about a lot of environmental issues that I'd love to see you guys take under consideration. One of them was banning styrofoam, also known as polystyrene. I know that the city has already taken steps and removed it from their city facilities. I noticed that Mr. Adams has a polystyrene cup. Sorry. If that's something that the board would be interested in removing from the rest of your facilities as well. Polystyrene breaks down into little teeny tiny pellets that are really hard to pick up. They float down to the ocean, and since it's lighter weight than most other plastics, it actually blows around really easily. And surprisingly enough, it causes cancer. So something for you guys to think about in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
There are none.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the board or the council on any item that is on the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close that portion and move on with the meeting. Up first, we have a subject that has been near and dear to board member Travanti's sphere of influence since she became elected. She has worked tirelessly in her personal time as well as her professional elected time, getting things done, up to and including talking to our state legislatures through letters and phone calls. She brought to the board to do a resolution from the board to have our elected representatives work diligently towards reducing the risk to our youth of vaping. And I know that Ms. Shevlin has had the same desire on the city side. So tonight we are going to be looking at what we can do collaboratively to work together for the citizens of our community, in particular the youth of our community. And I'd like to ask Dr. Terosian to please give the staff report.
Thank you, Board President Hammond, members of the board, Mayor Adams, council members. First, let me apologize for the styrofoam. Old batch. We had removed it from our cycle, but I guess we weren't very good at eliminating entirely. As President Hammond mentioned, this is a topic that we have been pursuing for quite some time. In fact, we applied for a grant to help us with the efforts because vaping is something that has emerged and gained traction over a very short period of time. And I don't think anybody was really quite prepared for the impact it was going to have. Neither did many people realize the adverse health effects it might have, especially in a substance that is not always controlled. So our objectives in pursuing the grant was to first, of course, reduce or eliminate, ideally, the use, provide anti-tobacco education, and allow kids to focus a little bit more on school, what they're doing, their goals, and improve that positive school environment. As I mentioned, e-cigarette use has increased considerably, and according to one, now this is a 2018 study, it is probably geometrically higher now, that percentage, not only within our schools, but across the nation. So to hear that 28% of high school students in the nation use e-cigarettes, I'm guessing that that number has also increased. Yeah. And in one of our surveys of our students, notice that students don't necessarily see e-cigarettes or vaping as harmful in terms of health. And that's where the education comes in. We need to educate our students about the harmful effects of vaping, cigarettes, tobacco use, and of course, tobacco products in general. And that starts with prevention and includes treatment. Educating students, they are not just vaping in school. They are vaping in the community, they're vaping at home, they're purchasing products online or nearby, and the products that they're using are, there's a niche merchandise called vapeware, where a jacket will have a vape pen installed in its collar. At Clifton Middle School, our assistant principal, Rich Morrison, put together a little shadow box. I'll pass this around. You'll see a bracelet in here, and it's a vaping bracelet. It'll look like a pen. It could look like any item at home, and it is very unobtrusive. So educating staff, parents, community about what it might look like is really critical. So that includes classroom presentations, it includes curriculum, but it also includes peer-to-peer programs so that the high school students help the middle school students understand the adverse impact of vaping, e-cigarettes, those products, and we don't want it to be cool to vape. And those peer-to-peer programs have been a lot more effective in reducing the use. And that also includes parent and community information. We've already had one parent night. We'll continue at each of our schools and provide continued information. We also need to help students refuse, that we don't want some of that peer pressure to include just you want to take a little bit of this. So we want them to have the skills and be comfortable in saying no. And finally, as referenced earlier, Board Member Travanti has spearheaded our efforts to support legislation to restrict the marketing. The grant that I also referenced earlier includes an advisory counselor, and I want to take this moment to thank the City of Monrovia for partnering with us, Monrovia Police Department, Monrovia Fire, the Chamber of Commerce, the PTSA, the City of Hope, DeVille Counseling and Therapists. We have a robust group of individuals working together to and collaborating in order to reduce the use. As I said, we've taken some steps, and prevention curriculum and cessation, alternatives to suspension, the use of tobacco to suspend a student and allow them to stay home and vape to their heart's content is probably not going to be the intervention that stops the behavior. What we want is for the consequences to stop the behavior. And that's where those cessation efforts and interventions come in. That's where we need to truly educate not only the student, but also make sure to partner with parents. And the awareness and accountability, both in the school level and with the communication at home. Our legislative advocacy, as President Hammond mentioned, we did on behalf of the board send a letter to our legislators asking them for assistance in reducing or restricting the marketing efforts to students or to adolescents, because the flavors that are out there, I think Board Member Travanti had mentioned unicorn.
Unicorn vomit is one of them.
As inviting as that might sound, it certainly would pique the interest, as Board Member Gillen just mentioned to me, of an adolescent. And what we want to do is restrict the marketing efforts, and as well as the online purchase of vaping products. We did receive one response to our from Senator Feinstein, thanking us for our efforts and inviting us to continue and to connect with Governor Newsom and ask him for his help in restricting the sales, online sales of vaping products, as well as the marketing and the targeted marketing to adolescents. With that, I would suggest that we would be far more effective if, as a city and a community, we were to send a letter, and were we to draft a letter to Governor Newsom, if the City Council is interested, we can jointly sign the letter and send it on behalf of the Monrovia community.
I think the more the merrier. I think our voice is louder with all of us.
Ms. Tronti, I know you had a question, or a comment, rather.
Yes, I would like to add, thank you, Dr. Tarosian, for your presentation. Teenage vaping is an epidemic. The National Youth Tobacco Survey of 2018 findings show U.S. high school e-cigarette users at 1.73 million. That was in 2017, but it increased to 3.5 million in 2018. That is a 78% increase in 1 year. In 1996, over 36% high school students smoked regular cigarettes. Today, only 9% smoke regular cigarettes. That's huge strides that were made in that area. Years of anti-cigarette campaigns worked, but now we have taken a huge step backwards. We have a new addicted generation in front of us. How did our teens get so addicted so quickly? Because of failure to regulate advertising of this emerging industry with ads and flavored products directly appealing to our youth. Big tobacco companies have purchased Juul and other e-cigarette companies to ensure revenue from the new generation of addicted vapors and smokers, the common product being nicotine. In Monrovia, we saw a 40% increase in tobacco and e-cigarette incidents over 2 years. Not only are we concerned with their health, we find students are vaping on campus and exposing other students and teachers with vaping residue. Vaping is done by males, females, all income levels, athletes, brainiacs, and everyone in between. Juul and e-cigarettes are easy to conceal. Just like Dr. Tarosian said, they are vaping into their sleeves, they are raising their collars, and it's easy to hide. And some of them are inhaling the vapor all the way into their lungs so that they're not breathing out and expelling the vapor. So it is very easy to hide, and that's what makes it extra difficult. They look like flash drives. Students can take a hit and breathe out and into their shirt. So one good source I found, and I invite you to watch the series Broken on Netflix. Episode number 2 is called Big Vape, a documentary about vaping youth epidemic. It features a high school in Milford, Connecticut, Jonathan Law High School, which coincidentally would have been the high school my daughter would have attended had we stayed in Connecticut. let me share some myths and realities with you provided by the California Youth Advocacy Networks and the California Department of Public Health. Myth: Juuls and other types of e-cigarettes produce a harmless water vapor. The reality: e-cigarettes produce an aerosol that has nicotine, harmful chemicals, and toxins known to cause cancer. These chemicals and toxins include things like formaldehyde, lead, and nickel. Myth: e-cigarettes aren't addictive. Reality: nicotine is a poison and a highly addictive drug. Nicotine is one of the main ingredients in Juuls and other types of e-cigarettes. One flavored Juul pod has as much nicotine as one pack of cigarettes. That's 20 cigarettes. Teens are going through pods on a daily basis. Myth: e-cigarettes can help people quit tobacco. Reality: e-cigarettes are not approved by the US FDA to help people quit tobacco. You may know someone who has stopped using tobacco and switched to Juul or another type of e-cigarette, but switching products isn't quitting tobacco and nicotine. Myth: e-cigarettes are not tobacco. Reality: the nicotine in most e-cigarettes comes from the tobacco plant, just like cigarettes. California recognizes e-cigarettes, including Juuls, as a tobacco product. Myth, and the last one: e-cigarettes are safe and don't have any toxins. The reality: Juuls and other types of e-cigarettes are not risk-free products. They still deliver nicotine, toxins, and chemicals, and many of the same chemicals found in tobacco products. Our district is working with local legislators, as Dr. DeFrosian spoke to. Monrovia Unified is taking a stand against teen vaping, and we are asking the city of Monrovia to join us in that stance, which you have, so thank you, I appreciate that. And the other item I was going to speak to was the grant, but Dr. Trosian spoke to that thoroughly, so appreciate that. But that's what we're doing here at Monrovia Unified. And we need parents, and we need guardians, and we need staff and everybody in the community to support this effort. Thank you.
Becky?
I was just going to say, if that wasn't all bad enough, the horrors of them also using it, it has the THC, or they have the marijuana added to it, and a lot of those are bootlegged or whatever, because those are deadly. The young people that use that actually die. It damages their lungs and they die. So, I mean, the educational aspect of that is huge, but to get the message out, because I think we've all been led to believe, at least in the beginning, oh, this is something good, this is something safe, and it's not. So just thought I'd mention that.
Any other comments?
I had a comment.
Oh.
While we're addressing the vaping epidemic, I wanted to applaud the board, especially Mr. Vanti, for spearheading this, and the city, Ms. Shevlin, for addressing this new epidemic. While we're addressing the vaping problem, I want us to think about the fact that we are addressing the symptom and not the disease. And the disease is tobacco. Tobacco has been a disease here in this country for 400 years. King James I called it an evil weed when Virginia first started to harvest the crops and send them back to England. This is an evil weed that has been plaguing our youth for 400 years. When is enough enough? How much further can we go in our advocacy? Could we, and I think we can, ban the sale of all tobacco products in Monrovia? That's drastic. I understand that. I understand that it would upset a lot of people, but I also think that it is something that will really perpetuate our advocacy and really be the healthiest thing for our youth and for our community. And I think it would show the nation and the world how forward-thinking we are and how caring we are for our youth and for our community. And that is a thought that I want to put out there for everybody to consider.
Ed?
Well, I would hope that we can leave this place tonight, the council and the board, in agreement that there are two things that we can do and have to continue to stride together to do. And one is to restrict access to these products. And the other thing is to educate, because as someone said, there is a feeling that, well, vaping is not all that bad. It's not as bad as cigarettes. Well, for the most part, it is as bad as cigarettes, and the research has proved that. So it can't all be up to the district for either the restriction or the education part. So I would hope that our staffs can work together to find every opportunity we have, whether it's passing ordinances to ban sale close to school grounds, whether it's eliminating the sale of flavors that target our kids in ordinances, if it's programs for parents at the library. We need to look at what all opportunities we have to work together. We've got a lot of things going on here on the education aspect, and we can certainly help the city with that aspect as we go forward. So I would hope we all leave here tonight with the commitment, and our staff leaves here with the commitment tonight to work together. And my suggestion is basically those two. How do we restrict access, and how do we educate not only the children, but the public?
I think you're sorry about that. I think you're on the right mark there, Ed, and I think I don't think you'll see any objection from anyone at the city to work hand in hand. That's why we're here. There are kids too, and we have a distinct interest in making sure that they're protected.
May I suggest that we put forward a joint resolution between the city and the schools, working towards that advocacy. More importantly, send this to our elected representatives, showing them that it's the entire elected bodies of the community that support this endeavor. I think we'll do it in the form of a motion, and then the school board vote, and then the city will vote on it, okay?
Sounds good.
So
moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get some discussion later.
I'll move, Tom.
Well, I think we're gonna do it separately.
Okay. But I have a quick question.
What is it?
So the educational piece, is it just going to be geared towards the 8th grade? 8th, 10th, and 12th graders? Are we going to try and push it down?
I think you have to go
The whole
before
thing,
that.
the whole gambit.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
Mr. Spicer,
cool.
we already had one outreach meeting to parents, and all grade levels were invited
Okay.
to that, and we will have additional as well.
That sounds good.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Ms. Huff, can we have a vote?
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes?
Board Member Gilliland.
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Am I doing it for the city as well?
And Tom?
Okay, and then Larry made a motion. And it's seconded.
I'll second.
And Alice, are you calling the roll?
I sure can.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Sure. Councilmember Hutchinson?
Yes.
Councilmember Shevlin? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Spicer?
Yes.
And Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, guys. This is an important first step that we show a united front. Thank you. Up next, we have an active shooter drill, and we have Captain Wilkin here tonight to give the report.
Thank you very much, board members and council. I apologize in advance. I'm getting over a cold, so in case I start to cough. I'm here to give you a brief overview of our department-wide active shooter training that we conduct annually, and that's from the chief on down. All sworn members attend to this training. We've been doing this for over 20 years, ever since the Columbine High School incident, and we focus our training on how MPD personnel respond to our tactical movement and rescue operations of our students and faculty and staff on school grounds. We use different school campuses during the spring and summer months for the experience that the officers get and the familiarity of each individual school campus. So every year we try to go to a different campus. This year's spring training we've already got scheduled for April 1st and 3rd at the high school, and the faculty and staff of MUSD will be invited to attend and to observe. We're collaborating with the fire department this year to ensure that we have efficient response of our rescue operations and our threat mitigation. Also during the year, our school resource officer provides a presentation to the faculty and staff, and this is the similar presentation that's given by our CAP Bureau, Community Activist Policing, to our neighborhood watch and map leaders. The training focuses on considerations and advice on what options faculty and staff have in the event of an active shooter emergency situation, to include shelter in place, lockdown, and survival protocols. The SRO has been extensively trained and certified by the state of California. At no time are school children present or used during the operations that we conduct for this training. We do have MPD explorers who are certified and licensed, insured, I should say, to be there. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of the captain? Ed?
Yes, we so much appreciate your efforts in these active shooter drills, because our staff needs the participation and to gain the information they gain from this kind of drill. We so appreciate it. I guess the question I would have is, the drills are great. The lessons learned are great. Are you guys involved with our schools in their site safety plans and integrating what you learn from those drills in the site-specific safety plans that we're producing for each school site?
I can't answer that directly because our school resource officer wasn't available this week. He's on vacation, so I don't know exactly what safe plans are done with the schools, but obviously everything is discussed.
Well, I know our resource officer is great at helping with those specific site safety plans. I'm just wondering if we adequately include the information from those drills that are so important. Lesson learned is, that's what it's all about, is lessons learned in those.
Every school safety plan is reviewed by the Monrovia Police Department and Fire Department to ensure adequacy. Dr. Jackson, is there anything you want to add to that as you oversee that process?
Not at this time. I mean, you clearly articulated that both MPD and fire review our safety plans before we bring them to the board.
I think Ed's question is, when you do the active shooter and you learn a lesson, is the safety plan immediately updated to include that information? Is that what I understood you to say, Ed?
Basically, or at least incorporated when you do the safety plan review.
Right.
I mean,
I
you
guess
could
what
do
he's
the
saying is,
drill and
we don't
never-
want 6 months lag between learning
Right.
something and having it incorporated into a safety plan.
Right.
Okay. As long as we're clear on that. I was clear. Any other questions?
I just want to thank you, Rob, for the clarification on the youth. I know we knew that they weren't a part of it, but apparently there was some misinformation out in the community, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Something very near and dear to both of us is the Monrovia Day, and Tina Cherry is here to give an update and a report.
Thank you, President Hammond, Mayor Adams, members of the board and the council. So it's my pleasure to be here tonight to give you an update on the Monrovia Days 2020 program. And surprisingly, this is going to be our 5th year of launching our revamped and renewed Monrovia Days. So it's exciting to see that it's continued to evolve over the last few years. So before we start talking about 2020, we just wanted to do a real quick recap on 2019, just to remind everybody of what the program has looked like in the past. So as you all know, it was a 3-day event starting on May 17th. It was a Friday night, and we were able to host a carnival, some game booths, some food booths, had some terrific entertainment both from some of the youth in the community as well as a professional band. Very full evening and really kicked the celebration off very well. And then on Saturday, we had our dignitary welcome in the morning, followed by the parade. And then we went into a full day from 11 a.m. until 10 p.m. with carnival rides, game booth, food sales, all kinds of terrific youth performances. Of course, the now infamous merengue pie eating contest. And then a professional band played us into the night as we danced under the lights. And then we concluded on Sunday, May 19th. Again, we had the carnival rides, game booths, food booths. We had youth performances. We had our partners from Citrus College out there to perform. And then we had another live professional R&B band in the evening. So some of the immediate takeaways from 2019 is we continue to see the parade grow. We actually had 69 parade entries, which was up 9 from the year prior. And we added some really cool enhancements to the parade viewing this year. We had our senior clubs come out, and they had a VIP parade experience, which was a lot of fun. And then the Chamber of Commerce had a VIP reception at their facility. And then through the partnership and the support of President Hammond, we were able to get some bleachers from the Rose Parade down on Myrtle Avenue. So we had some additional parade viewing for our guests in our community. We had many awards that were given in all different categories: Center Stage, Pasadena Drum Squad, Mayflower Elementary, Chamber of Commerce, and Monrovia High School Mountain Bike Team all were winners in various categories. We had 10 carnival rides, 3 different inflatable activities, 7 game booths, 7 food booths, 10 community booths, and a whopping 14 teams competing in our pie eating contest, which equated to 17 people taking their hand at putting their face in a pie. So we just had some photos we wanted to share with you. This was in the morning at our dignitary welcome. We had a great performance by the youth of Center Stage. Some of the parade entries. This gives you a feel of kind of the volume of activity, the number of people who were out at the event. Some of the takeaways, the really cute moments with dads and kids and beautiful lights. And of course, the famous pie eating contest. So truly, the event wouldn't be possible without all of our collaboration and our partnerships with, of course, the Monrovia Unified School District, and then over the years we've added some partners. Center Stage obviously was one of our key partners, and then we brought in the Volunteer Center of the San Gabriel Valley, and then the Monrovia Chamber of Commerce was added this year, and representatives from each of those groups are here tonight, and we're just so thankful for their ongoing partnership. So we met with the planning committee following the 2019 event, and we just wanted to kind of, while it was fresh in our mind, have some discussion about what our observations were, what did we need to change for the coming year. And we were estimating that there was a conservative 10,000 people who came into Monrovia and enjoyed the carnival over the 3 days. We did have cooler weather, which kind of impacted the participation in the days because it kind of got chilly, but we still think we had really good attendance. The enhanced parade viewing was really well received, and the recognition of the parade recipients at the carnival was a welcome add as well. And once again, that pie eating contest just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and people are super competitive and really excited each year to be a part of it. We also did receive some criticism from families who were coming on Sunday when we closed at 6. They wanted to stay later and were curious why we were wrapping up at 6 o'clock when there was still a couple hours of daylight left. So with all of that, we did start to formulate some recommendations. The planning committee will be convening coming up in the next few weeks. We'll be scheduling a meeting to get the planning started for the next year. But we do anticipate that we'll look at continuing to enhance our parade viewing and continue to look at doing recognition of the winners at the carnival to coincide with the pie eating contest when we have big participation and big attendance, and make sure that we're not overshadowing the parade recipients this year by the pie eating contest. So we'll do that a little bit more coordinated effort. We also want to provide more information about the pie eating contest on the application. There were folks who came who felt that we had started it too soon and they didn't get to be a part of it. And so we really want to make sure that we're clear in articulating what the rules are with the pie eating contest. We're also looking at shifting the Sunday activities. We've been thoughtful about not doing it in the morning, so those who want to, go to their faith, community and spend some time with their family, they can do that before coming. So we'll start a little later at noon and then go a little bit later until 8 p.m., which is still a respectable time for people to get home and get ready for the work week or school week. And then the last thing is we really want to look to formalize the collaboration with all our different partners. As the program has evolved and expanded, it makes sense for us to get maybe some MOUs in place with all of our community partners to ensure that we're all on the same page and we kind of know who is doing what and just clarifies things. So we'll be looking at developing that. So this year we're in now, 2020, it'll be a 3-day event beginning on May 15th. The program essentially will stay the same with our parade and pie eating contest being the highlights on our Saturday. And the only real big shift we're looking at this point is to shift Sunday into a little bit later in the day. Again, the Planning Committee is before you, so we anticipate Mayor Pro Tem Spicer will continue to serve, and Board President Hammond, as well as City Manager Dylan Feek and Kathy Throsian, the Superintendent. We love having Patrick Garcia involved. He's involved with all the arts in the schools, and it's a great collaboration to get them involved early and often. And then, of course, Center Stage and Keely Milliken will continue to be our partner. Penny Arroyo, even though she recently retired from the Volunteer Center, she has agreed to stay on board and help with the planning and has more time to give, so we're really excited about that. And then myself and Rebecca Sandoval will continue to serve in that role as well. We just wanted to give you a snapshot of the budget. So we have the what we had projected for 2019, what the actuals were for 2019, and then what we have in the approved budget for this coming year. Essentially, for this coming year, we're looking at about $110,000 in revenue. That includes the school district and the city's contribution, as well as sponsorship and overall ticket sales. And then with that, we've also shown you the expenditures. A majority of this goes to our carnival operator, but we do have a lot of money invested in professional services with equipment rentals and sound and things such as that. So if you look at what our projections are, we tend to stay on track. We are estimating that we will cover our expenditures with the proposed revenue. And the last thing we just want to bring to your attention is to ensure that the carnival could happen, we needed to contract with Paul Maurer Show, who has been our carnival operator the last 4 years. So the City Council took action on that back in July, so they currently are under contract for 2020. We also have identified what the rides were. We'll give you a quick shot on what those look like. The contract with Paul Maurer does include the 2 air-conditioned ticket booths as well as a dunk tank, which is also very popular. So again, this year we anticipate having the Ferris wheel, which is a big showstopper, the carousel, which is beautiful and great for families to enjoy, the Gravitron, which if you have not had a chance to do the Gravitron, I challenge you. We'll have the Sizzler, which is an old carnival favorite, the Tornado, Dizzy Dragons, taxi rides for the little ones, the Dragon roller coaster with the kids absolutely love, a slide, and then we have a maze that I don't have a picture of at this point, but that would be the 10th apparatus. So with that, that concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any feedback.
Thank you, Tina. Any questions, comments?
I wanted to know if there was some sort of maybe pie eating contest. I'm not clear on that.
You know, it sounds familiar, but...
That's a good idea, Slade.
Thank you.
As long as all the participants go by the rules.
Ooh. Oh. I have a picture of that.
Tina, I do have a question.
That's an old joke.
These rides that are pictured here, are they the same exact ones as last year, or there is a difference here to just kind of keep
Correct.
people
Yeah.
Excited. Okay.
There's some that we are, consistent. The Gravitron's consistent. The the Dragon roller coaster and the Fun Slide. But the other ones we've rotated each year to kind of have some diversity.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just want to thank Mr. Hammond and Mr. Spicer. I know that's one more meeting on top of everything else, but the proof is in the pudding, and I think this has proven to be very successful. And in addition to them, everybody who's worked on it. I mean, this is a community event, and it's really turning out nice.
Tina, the last time, I think it was the Thanksgiving celebration we did downtown. You guys put together, I think you call it a truck petting zoo. And my take on that was it was very successful, and the kids just loved it. Would just ask you to maybe give a thought to at least some truck petting zoo kind of thing, because it's good for the kids and a good introduction to some of the things the city does too, I believe. So
It's a great idea. We'll bring that back to the committee. Thank you.
I did have something, and I don't know that it's appropriate at this point, but I'll just bring it up. And I had reached out to Celine, and I think our Monrovia Day event is absolutely spectacular, and the partnerships that we've forged are wonderful, and it's a really neat event. And I had an idea. I know that budgets are like lean or even sometimes non-existent, or we stretch every penny to, the absolute lengths. As many of you know, I'm very involved with Monrovia Reads. I'm actually the treasurer, and I've been the past president, and I know that you have very graciously given the city $10,000 each year for the Monrovia Day event, and I'm just saying, if budgets are, and I know that promotion has been very big for you for this event, I'm just wondering if budgets are what they are. I know that Monrovia Reads would like to offer a sponsorship or have a request a sponsorship from the school district for Monrovia Reads, which would get their name on the van. And I'm not saying take it necessarily from the Monrovia Days budget. Maybe they could share or whatever. And I think regardless of the money involved, you guys are our partners. You're involved. I would never propose charging you for being a partner in our event. But if monies are limited and you only have $10,000, the sponsorship for the Monrovia Reads is $7,500 for the year, and it gets your name on the van and some other perks. But I'm just putting it forward for consideration. Obviously, the city council doesn't make that decision, but I'm just throwing it out there.
I think I can respond to that. As individuals, each of the people on the board absolutely support, not only with time and energy, but financially, Monrovia Reads. As an entity, we would be prohibited to give money to a 501c3, which what Monrovia Reads is, because that would be a gift of public funds. There is a distinct difference between our activity with Monrovia Day, which is the promotion of all the school activities that we have, and giving money away to, not giving money away, it's the wrong way of saying it, promoting by giving money to a nonprofit organization, which would cross the line and be a gift of public funds. Could not do that.
Wouldn't it open up a can of worms for other people to try and solicit the same?
Well, I think you'd have somebody at your podium every other Tuesday night asking you for the same thing. We do have the two deepest pockets in the community, the school and the city, but that money belongs to the taxpayers to be used judiciously to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our citizens. But that's why I think as individuals, we have all, I think, been very active in supporting Monrovia Day, Monrovia Reads, and all the other different activities that we do have. It never hurts to ask the question.
Yeah. And I was just putting it out there. I didn't realize that there would be that restriction for Monrovia Reads. They work so closely with the city, and I know they're separate, and Monrovia Reads is a separate 501c3. And but those sponsorships are available to all sorts of entities to sponsor the program, which is fantastic, which currently Monrovia Reads van does go to all the school sites now. And so, never hurts to ask.
Never does.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you go.
Ms. Cherry, would you mind going back to the slide that showed income and expense? So for the projected 2020, the revenue is 110,000 and the estimated expenditure is 105,000, and I understand that those are estimations, but if it were to come out that way, where does that $5,000 go? Where would that
Next year.
$5,000 go?
Next year.
It starts over the next year.
It goes into
So
the
it would have a
fund
positive
for-
balance,
okay.
positive ending balance of 5,000. And I want to be real clear so that people understand sort of what these numbers look like. There is a tremendous amount of labor that goes into Monrovia Day, not only on the behalf, part of the school district, the city especially. The city's the 800-pound gorilla in the room on this thing. And they have an exorbitant amount of time that they spent producing this event. It is probably maybe even more than that if you were to calculate it out, because I'm sure there's some trade-off on time for people that you wouldn't see necessarily on a paycheck, so that if you worked on a weekend, well, then you got the next weekend off or something like this. So you're not seeing the full picture. I can just tell you from looking at the number of staff people that I see out there, it's tremendous. And I think to be able to get it in at a budget that's $110,000 for a community event of this size is tremendous. And both entities should be congratulated for working the way around that labor problem, because that is truly what it is. We have a labor problem, not a want to help out problem. And so being able to figure out a way around that is very good.
Not to mention the countless volunteer hours. We have just a wonderful community here, and people step up to booths, and I know I've been in booths before, so it takes a village to put this on, and it is an incredible event that I look forward to every year.
Well, I'm going to toot the horn of the schools one more time. We go to all of our elementary school principals and say, we're going to have an event on a Saturday. This is certainly not within school time. And it's not something that they can put together the Saturday of Monrovia Day. This is an event that has to be planned weeks, if not months in advance. So there's all that time that's done in a collaborative way. And the proof is in the fun that everybody's having. We have put Monrovia Day on the map that will far outlive any of us sitting in these seats. And I think it's tremendous. So thank you, Tina. Thank you, city. Thank you, schools.
Center stage.
Yeah, thank you, citizens and community, for showing up. You do show up for your birthday party. So thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Tina.
T.
Up next is the tree replacement, and the staff report will be given between Kathy and Dylan. Who goes first?
I'm actually going to invite our Public Works Director, Sean Sullivan, to come and give a brief update on the status of our project. As you know, the city's been very ambitious in all of our Monrovia renewal activities. And so Sean's just going to speak a little bit about some of the disruptions we made in our lives.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. Mr. Hammond, Mr. Adams, members of the school board, members of the council, thank you for allowing me to provide you a brief update this evening. As everyone's well aware, this summer, the school district and the city took advantage of the opportunity to remove some trees along the frontage of the high school. These were camphor trees that, were not the most appealing. It certainly contributed to some poor sidewalk access and some damage to the sidewalk along that area. So all in, we removed approximately 52 trees from along the frontage of the high school, both on Colorado and on Madison. My next statement will obviously sound counterintuitive to it, but I assure you it all comes back together. The city's committed to trees. The city has been recognized by the National Arbor Day Foundation as a Tree City USA for more than 20 years. In addition, we boast an inventory of more than 9,000 trees. As such, we're committed to making sure that we replant the trees on a 2-for-1 basis and that we care for our urban forest. The opportunity that we took at that position was to repair the sidewalk in front of the high school, and put some new trees in there to provide some, greater life and visibility into the area. We started with Madison this November. We planted approximately 40 Brisbane box trees along Madison Avenue. Those trees were recommended by our city arborist for a couple of reasons. One, that they're fast growing. Two, that they'll provide shade to return some of the canopy, excuse me, that was given previously by the camphor trees. And probably most importantly, from one of my perspectives, is that they have a low to moderate impact on the infrastructure, meaning that the trees, as they go in, the roots aren't as aggressive as the roots from those camphor trees, so we won't end up with the sidewalk trip hazards that we had there on the front edge of the high school to begin with. In terms of planting the remainder of the trees, as I said, we're committed to planting a 2-for-1 basis. So based off the 52 that we removed, we owe about 104 trees in replacement. We want to be very well coordinated with the school district. Today I saw an updated iteration of the plan. I know the school's got some terrific ideas for rehabbing and improving the landscape in front of the school there. In terms of replanting the trees, we don't want to go out there and haphazardly replant the trees in front of the school just to meet those numbers. Rather, we'd like to continue the partnership that we've fostered with the school staff in contributing in a meaningful and effective way to enhancing the overall landscape and viability of that building. Really, our goal is to plant trees that complement the overall landscape plan, the curb appeal of the building, and in addition to some of the feedback we've heard, look at opportunities for native trees or trees that contribute to the overall conservation efforts put forth by the city. So that being said, like we've received some copies of the landscape plans that the school district has been looking at and considering, and our commitment in terms of follow-up is to continue to maintain contact with the team at the school district, so that as the landscape plans for the larger improvements of the school continue to unfold, that our commitment to contributing to and replanting these trees in that area is met with timeliness and efficiency in terms of executing that project. So from our perspective, I think that's it for my update.
Any questions of Mr. Sullivan?
Why don't we just show some of the pictures of the area, and as Ms. Huff is getting those slides up, I want to also thank Mr. Sullivan for all of his help in coordinating. I know that he and Ms. Wu have been working together. This is the area in front of the school that we were talking about, and we are working with an organization called Amigo de los Rios. And the intent is not only the aesthetics of our landscaping, but also drought resistant and efficient water use in that area. So the trees that are marked up front will be replaced and rather incorporated into the overall scheme. The idea is to use plants that are indigenous to that area, and once we have design and are successful in an allocation from a grant, we'll be pursuing this project further.
Ms. Lockerbie.
Thank you so much for your commitment to the trees. I'm a fan. One of the things that you mentioned is the canopy and the shade that it provides. I'm sure you're familiar with the heat island effect. And one of the things that trees do, in addition to the oxygen that it gives us, is offset the heat island effect. As I said, I'm a fan of trees. I'm wondering if, in addition to the project that you're doing with the trees, if you have made a consideration to for freestanding solar panels that don't require water, that generate energy for the city and offer shade, offsetting the heat island index effect. I'm wondering if that is something that you have considered. I know those aren't trees, and I don't want to try and derail this concept right here, but they kind of work together.
Correct. There's not been any specific advancements on our behalf in terms of talking that through, but it's certainly something that, as we look at efficiency and sustainability, it's certainly something that's part of the conversation, I think. And as we wind down some of the efforts of Monrovia renewal and other key priorities, this is something that will continue to be a part of the conversation.
I have a question, Sean. So the Brisbane box trees, was Amigo de los Rios part of the discussion in choosing those trees?
not as a part of the larger landscape. We did mention to them at a meeting in the field prior to us planting them what we were planting, and there was no objections on their behalf.
So they weren't part of the planning, but we asked them. And
Correct, and they found them to be not in conflict with their proposed plans for what they're doing there.
Great.
At this school.
But the discussion was prolonged enough so that they were given an opportunity to object.
Correct.
Okay, great, thanks. They're a wonderful local nonprofit and have been leaders in this area locally, so I'm glad to hear they were at least talked to about it and it was exposed to them. Thank you.
And I noticed there were some icons, little butterfly icons on that landscaping plan. So I'm assuming that those would be they would attract butterflies. I don't know specifically milkweed, but I did notice the butterfly. So if they want to attract butterflies, maybe we can make sure it's milkweed, and the right kind of milkweed. Milkweed not any kind of milkweed will do.
Can you go back on that, Sean? No, keep going. Right, go forward. Right there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 with the butterflies on them?
Yeah.
And those are plants, not trees?
I believe so, Tom.
Okay.
Our intent, as we looked at this, and Rob brought it up and said we should be looking more at drought-tolerant landscaping and not so much grass, although we have to have grass areas for the kids to practice and play and do things. But the front of that has to remain a show place. It's one of the iconic structures of Monrovia. And so as we looked at this, we said, how can we put drought-tolerant plants and still maintain the characteristic of that beautiful structure? It's a legacy for this city. And it's so important that be coordinated in a way that enhances the architecture and doesn't detract from it. And I just want to say thank you to the city for working with our architects and folks as we look at how we're going to redo the front of that building to be more drought tolerant and still keep this one of the iconic structures in town and show it off, not hide it, but to show it off. So your help in doing that is certainly appreciated.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to the rest of the collaboration.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now comes the time for us. Anything that we would like to get on the next joint meeting that is of mutual interest between the school and the city?
Mr. Hammond. Chair Hammond, I noticed that Jennifer McDonald is here, and I assume she came in after the public comment. And I know she wanted to share a program with the school, and I don't know if you would allow her to address.
I do not. How does the body feel? Reopen? Okay, I'll take that in a minute.
If she would like to still address, I assume you got here after the public comment.
In just 1 minute, okay? Let's do any ideas first, and then we'll come back to this. Does anybody else have any ideas or pressing issues that should be brought before our joint bodies? Then we'll wait for some.
I'll just throw it out there,
okay.
Rob, and it's me maybe, but I think one of the things we don't talk often enough about as the leadership, I know our staff does, but I think as a leadership, we don't talk nearly enough about the effort of the gangs to get our kids involved in gang activity. And at some point, I think we as the leaders need to talk about what efforts are undergoing and have some discussion with our staffs as to what that is and look at, are we doing enough to keep our kids out of the gang life. Because some of our kids are under serious pressure to get involved in that. So it's just.
I would look like, and I agree, Ed, I would like to look at the city and the schools looking for funding jointly for things that benefit us. Before this meeting this evening, we had an opportunity to meet with some folks, and it's not going to be easy. But there are some things that work very collaboratively between our two entities. One is because you have a police department and we don't. Yet we have some very critical members of the community that the police are looking and charged with protecting, and that is the students. And there is funding available out there that do those both. And so we were working together collaboratively, seeking that funding together. I think that we would be a lot more likely to be benefiting from some of these funds. Since we have partnered together with the SRO, I think it has been a huge benefit to both of our entities. One in that we're having a very positive experience with a police officer in our classroom, and the fact that the students trust that police officer so that in a time of need, they would go to somebody that they trusted, not just because the person was wearing a uniform and a badge, but was because it was an officer that they knew. The relationship has been established, which is critical. There are funding opportunities out there for that, and I would like to see us work together wherever possible to seek that funding together.
So, Rob, are you talking about the safe route to schools?
Larry, really any of them that we need to work collaboratively.
So maybe we can have our staff to check into that.
Yeah,
you know.
And we're looking at that stuff too, so where we can see these two things would be beneficial to both of us, I think we should work together. Instead of working at two different entities, work together, and it will save time and energy.
I'd like to see regular reports on the SRO program. You're probably more aware ongoing of what's happening in that regard than we are, and this is one of our opportunities to focus on it with our educators who have important opinions about it.
Maybe quarterly reports?
Yeah.
Dylan, we just got a thumbs up. Good idea.
Okay, going along with that, and what we spoke about earlier about the active shooter drills, I think it'd be important to put that on the agenda to have a report out. I'm going to assume there's going to be a summary, a review, you know, what worked well, what didn't. I think that's really important to report out to these two bodies as well as the public, so they know exactly what's going on, what needs to be worked on. And then when the board is presented with those school site safety plans, there are things that we're going to look for on that as a result of the active shooter drills. So that's what I would like to be added.
I have an item regarding homelessness. The city of Monrovia has a great program. Our program generally on addressing homelessness includes, we have a special program to prevent homelessness, and we just had a report on that our partnership with Mountainside Church. Is it Mountainside? Yes, Mountainside.
Mountainside Communion.
Yes. And through that program, we were able to help 31 students stay within the school district, their families, to not go into homelessness. And so to the degree, I know there are a lot of privacy issues and things like that, but to the degree that both the city and the school district could work together to share information, to identify those families that might be able to benefit from that program. We don't have huge dollars, but it's at least something. And if that program can't fix it, maybe we can find some other solutions that could help those families and students.
I think all very good ideas. Kathy, you have those notes? I think.
May I add just one more? And I think it's premature. We as the council have been spending, and me in particular, spending a lot of time on stormwater cleaning compliance under the MS4 permit. I don't know whether the school board is aware of the fact that school districts are about to become not full-level permittees, but you're about to become permittees which will have an impact on you. I'm not sure that any of us know what that is, but I think that between our Public Works Department and me, we need to ask some of those questions, because one of the things we can do is fill the school district in on what they're going to be required to do, which could impact on planning, like the landscaping out front, and save you maybe some money in the process. So I'd just like us to keep our eyes on that inclusion of school districts as permittees under the MS4 permit, which is municipal separate stormwater sewers, or storm control channels, to capture stormwater.
Is that going to be something coming up very soon that we need to be acutely aware of?
Within the next year and a half, for sure. I just don't, I think that a lot of municipalities were surprised, since I've been hearing murmurs about this and specifically asked the executive officer of the LA Water Quality Board the question. It's coming, you can hear the train a-coming, you know, and a lot of us were surprised by it, and I think that you should be able to learn from that experience.
I recall seeing something about the stormwater come to our desk.
It's been discussed for several years. I've been wondering when the hammer was going to fall. And if your Public Works Department has some information, I would propose, if we can, we schedule a briefing at one of our meetings in the next couple of months.
I was just going to ask Ms. Wu if you could get together with Mr. Sullivan and get that information and bring it to us so that we can get it instead of waiting for a joint meeting.
And I'm absolutely sure the staff of the LA Water Quality Board would be helpful in this regard. Monrovia's really had a leadership position in making compliance affordable, and they see us as people that are able to communicate well. And let's give them something else to brag about in terms of maybe being their first workshop that they participate in to help you guys understand what's coming from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
So just, Ed, when you say the hammer falls, that hammer was going to be $200 million to the city of Monrovia. And
we've
everybody,
got a lot of acreage.
with Gloria kind of leading the charge on this, has worked incredibly well to get that reduced down to a number that we can live with.
Right.
And still comply with clean water standards.
I would like to, in the next 6 months, start looking for a date again so that we can hold another joint meeting. So we can start looking 6 months into the future where all of our busy schedules will collide once again in the evening. And we can get together and report out on some of the things that we talked about tonight, because some of these things will be underway. Monrovia Day will be in the rearview mirror. It'll be a good time to talk about what went right. And do a little critiquing of what we think should be better in the future. Hopefully where we're standing as a community on vaping will have taken some root, and the tree replacement and will be underway and things like that. So we can start looking for another 6 months. Yes.
Since I brought up Monrovia Reads, I do want to push then the event, which is Thursday, March 5th. And we are honoring this year Joanne Spring, who is the queen of Monrovia Reads. And we do plan that event should sell out, but just to give it a little plug, the So All May Read fundraising event will be on March 5th. And we look forward to having everybody there and to congratulate Joanne for many, 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 many wonderful years of, and she's not done yet, but of contributing. So thank you.
And I would like to, I normally would not do this in a meeting, but this is a special meeting, and because it's special, I'll go ahead and make an exception one time. And that is, I'll go back into the agenda and open an item up for a member of the public to please be able to come and speak so that they may be heard. And I'm sorry that you got caught in traffic. So at this time, I'll reopen the public time, and the microphone is yours.
And the City Council. My name is Jennifer McDonald, and I'm the mother of 2 teenage boys at Monrovia High School. I am here today to discuss with you the potential of a learning prototype, essentially. I sent an email to Dr. Throsian and Principal McGinnis in January 1st of 2019. As you all know, we have an epidemic of violence in our country, and mass shootings being at the #1. In the year of 2018, we had more school shootings than we've had in the entire 20th century. So I thought it would be a really great time for us to discuss how we can work with our children and work on the culture of our institutions to maintain a culture of safety and compassion for each other and for our faculty and administration. So I don't normally like to read things. I would have been happy to have and please tell me when I'm out of time, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. And again, I thank you for it. But just to kind of give you an idea, this prototype will assist in the hierarchical model which exists so that children, regardless of their family of origin and access to resources, will be on an equal plane with all peers. This model will embed optimism through providing each child with a sense of value and importance through setting goals and expectations of achieving those goals. This model is loosely based on the social emotional learning model, which is an evidence-based learning method. However, there is a wide gap between research and practice in school-based prevention and promotion, just as many clinical interventions for children and adolescents to be understood. The primary source for this curriculum would be actually, for myself, 2 decades of personal experience on cultural change in large healthcare entities. I work for a very large academic healthcare institution. I have served in healthcare for over 30 years, and I've implemented this program in multiple settings where I have to make adults malleable to change and cultural transformation, and I know that it works. So we can take a culture where it's typically negative, where children are bullying and picking on one another, and turn it into a culture of compassion. And we do this by being able to work with each child independently, but also as a group. My ask in this is that the program would include all educators, administrators, and staff, and that they have direct contact, and anyone who has direct contact with the students on a routine basis. This program will also assess the satisfaction of those educating and leading the students. Without impacting the educators, we will not be able to transform the culture. Because as we know, if those leading are dissatisfied with their work and disengaged, then students will be as well. So really it is to be able to start out the school year with being able to have setting an essential baseline for how the children feel about themselves, and also being able to engage our educators in the same questions. How do you feel about your work? Do you feel loyal to your institution? Are you happy with what you do? We know that just like with a patient and family, physician, nursing engagement, if they're not engaged, and they're not excited about what they do and they're not passionate about it, then their patient won't have a good experience. And the same is true if our educators are not engaged and they're not excited about what they do, then the students won't be either. And I'm not saying, this is not to say that our teachers are not engaged. We have fabulous teachers. We have a fabulous school district. What I'm asking is that we try to work on being able to set up a program that doesn't, according to my research, and I researched it for a good 1.5 years before I put this plan together, there isn't anything like this in the country that's helping children to be able to cope in the school setting, so that we don't have children that are actively suicidal or homicidal on our campuses, so that we as teachers don't get things like death threats. And then for people to just simply say, well, we've decided that it wasn't a legitimate threat within 24 hours, let's say, and I don't know who was able to assess that child to determine whether or not they were a legitimate threat. And again, This is also not to say that I'm trying to pick on our school district or our school board, because I'm not. I love the city of Monrovia. I'm dedicated to the city of Monrovia. And what I'm hoping is that we can collaborate our efforts to have a discussion for a program that could potentially be the legacy for the city of Monrovia, to be able to say, look what we've done in our city. Look what we've done for our children and for our parents, our families, and our educators and leaders. Look what we've done to make a difference, so that we've reduced the violence in our schools, so that we don't have children that are afraid to come to school each day, so that we don't have problems with children coming to school. We don't have problems, again, with suicidality. I spent my first 20 years in healthcare in the acute psychiatric setting, working with children and adolescents. So I'm very familiar with that population. I just think that it would be wonderful if we could take a look at what we might be able to do to impact not just the city of Monrovia, but our country in terms of our future, which is our children, which I know everyone in this room is 150% invested in. So that's what I'm here for. Thank you again so much for giving me this opportunity. I have some paperwork, and I can also send things to you electronically. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
One question is, have you talked to our staff about all the programs we have ongoing in this district for mental health?
Yes, sir. And that's, as I said, I'm not mitigating what we're already offering. I'm just saying that it has to be something that we embed into the entire culture in order to transform it. So we may have a few children that are taking advantage of those programs, and they're wonderful, but it has to be the whole in order to change the culture.
Dr. Trosian, would you please take her contact information and get together with her after? Thank you.
Yes, and I would probably invite Dr. Jackson, who oversees the safety plans.
Okay. And we have your contact information?
Yes, sir. And I can leave this information with you as well. And Dr. Trosian was kind enough to answer my email when I first sent it. And I met with Principal McGinnis. It's just that nothing happened after that. And I would really love to see a next step effort in this.
We appreciate you.
Thank you
so much.
much.
You coming. If you have something to pass out, if you give it to Ms. Huff, please, and she'll make sure we all get copies.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again for the opportunity.
And since I opened it up, anybody else wishing to speak to the board or the council on any item? Seeing and hearing none, I will close that.
You've got one in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see you raise your hand.
I wanted to speak again. My name's Kim Riley, and I'm just a parent. And I just wanted to bring up when you were talking about vaping, and someone had said that they didn't think someone being sent home for vaping so they could sit at home and vape some more was a good idea. I just want to make sure that if there are people who are breaking school rules, vaping on campus, that they do have some consequences. And because it's not fair to the other children who are following the rules and not vaping on campus and not exposing other children to, I don't know if vape has secondhand smoke, but I just want to make sure that the children who are behaving are not punished, and there's no consequences. There has to be action. I have heard my children do not go to Clifton. My son will go to Clifton next year, and I've heard that some of the bathrooms have to be closed on campus because there were kids vaping in them. Well, that means that the children who are behaving can't go to the bathroom, or they have to, go to the other side of the campus. And that, this is just secondhand information, but it really makes me quite angry to hear that there are some kids who are ruining it for the others. So I just wanted to make my commentary on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And will you please follow up? And we have your contact information? I want to make sure you get some information. Okay. So if you'll make sure that we have your contact information, we can get in touch with you.
And I do want to take an opportunity to clarify a consequence and a suspension are not the same thing. There is always a consequence.
Right. I was going to say, during oral communication, it's not a dialogue. You tell us, we listen, and then we do what we're going to do right now, which is there are consequences to every negative action that happens. It is not a ollie outs and free because we think sending you home is a bad idea because you're going to vape some more. That's not the case, okay?
Rob, I wanted to make one more comment. Some of you may have seen some smiles up here when we started talking about the styrofoam. And that's because right before we came up here, I was lecturing Rob and others in the little break room because we had styrofoam cups. And being trained very well by Mr. Tyndall, I was pointing out that especially the health risks involved with the styrofoam. So I didn't want anybody to think we were making light of it. We weren't laughing at Mr. Tyndall. It was just that we had this conversation literally right before we got up here. So just wanted to mention that.
Okay. If there's anyone else that wishes,
Go ahead.
I'm going to close the public hearing. If there's anybody else that wishes to speak to the board or the council on any, we do. So okay, let's do this. Let's go out in the foyer. There's little forms. Let's fill them out, and then we can do it in an orderly manner instead of keep doing this. So thank you.
She has metal straws in her purse. Yes. House of Windsor.
We call those Brian Tyndall straws.
Oh.
I think she's the other one. So.
No forms.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean to give you an exercise in futility. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you, and I apologize for being late. I, too, was stuck in traffic. It's tricky to get here from downtown Los Angeles by 6. I'm not going to read this really long letter. I'm going to send it to you guys, but I just wanted to voice, I'm a parent. My name is Sierra Wilson. I've been a resident of Monrovia for 15 years. I have 2 children who attend the schools here, Clifton and Mayflower. My oldest son will be at the high school in the fall, and I'm terrified to send him there. I have observed a lot of security deficiencies on the campus. I realize we cannot prevent all of the violence that is going on in our country, but it can happen in Monrovia. And I have heard a lot of people sort of have a very laissez-faire attitude to Monrovia, thinking it won't happen here. It can happen here. I'm sure Saugus didn't think it was going to happen in Saugus. We need to be better prepared. And I have a list of ideas that I don't think are very expensive or hard to implement. I've heard of parents willing to volunteer and donate resources, funds, security systems. I'd be happy to fundraise personally and sell wrapping paper if it would help the safety of my school. And so I will submit the letter. I won't bore everybody. It's long and I have lots of thoughts. But I really think this needs to be a top priority. Also on the vaping, I know many kids who don't go to the bathroom all day because the vaping is so prevalent in the bathrooms. That's unacceptable. I have also heard of vaping in classrooms with teachers present. That is unacceptable. So I think we can do better. I'm happy to help us do better. I'm a communications professional. I also am very aware of the risks if we don't do better. And I'm here to help, and I know a lot of parents who are passionate about this, and whatever we can do to make a difference, I would like to do that. So I will submit this later, and you'll hear more from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board or the council on any item? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing. And Mr. Adams?
I just wanted to comment a little further on the mental health issue and safety. And I'm not sure what the solution is, but clearly our whole country is missing something. And I speak as someone who's dealt with mental illness in my family for my entire life. And it's sad as I see, and I speak mainly regarding my sister, the things that used to be available to her that are no longer available to her. And I'm not sure why. But I can tell you that if it were not for me, my sister would be homeless. And I know there's a lot of people that don't have a brother that can help them. And anything we can do together, there's a lot of bright minds in these two groups. anything we can do to try to fix it in Monrovia, I think will be a wonderful thing, and perhaps we can set an example for others, because there's just a whole world out there that needs help. And that's the old saying, if not us, who? So I'm all in if we can do something on that.
You're absolutely right. And with the homeless situation, until we can really address the mental illness and the substance abuse, it's a losing battle. I mean, there are all sorts of different reasons why people are homeless, but those are two major, major, major issues that aren't being properly addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Adams, for bringing that up. I really do believe that, again, treating the symptom instead of the disease, and I think that advocacy for funding for better treatment for mental health would cure so many of the symptoms that we're seeing. So thank you for mentioning that, and I think that collectively we can be advocates for that.
And I would like to make one comment, and I appreciate the people who took the time to come here and face the traffic to get here, and to tell us your thoughts. It's very important. I want to assure you that we take safety very seriously, and we do not have all the answers. We don't even try to purport that we have all the answers. What we are willing to do is listen to what people's concerns are, and then strive very, very hard to make sure that those concerns are addressed. I do not want you to think because we're not having a conversation that you come to the podium that it's fallen on deaf ears. The fact that one person in our community has a concern about the safety of our schools, your child's trip to school, child's trip home from school, or are they safe on the weekend in their community, it's not fallen on deaf ears. So I appreciate very much taking your time and coming here to be heard. It takes a lot of courage to get up and go and speak in front of somebody that you don't know, and do it in a manner that is both respectful yet firm, because you want to make sure that folks understand that what you're saying has meaning to you. And trust me, what you said was both respectful and firm, and I understood you completely. And so we'll be working diligently trying to address these issues to make sure that our campuses are the safest they can be, and I know the council will work as hard as they can make sure our community is safe as it can be. If there's no further business before this body, we will stand adjourned at 7:30.